She stepped into the trees as if swallowed by a secret the earth didn't want to share. Neighbors later said it was like the forest opened its arms, took her in, and closed again without a trace. One moment, a girl walking down a dirt path in fading daylight. The next, silence, emptiness, and a trail that ended in nothing. No scream, no sign of panic, just the terrifying sense that something had claimed her. This is not just a disappearance. It is a story that chills investigators even years later, because what happened inside those woods defies explanation. Disclaimer: this story is based on real-life events. All details are presented respectfully and responsibly. She was only 17, a quiet teenager who preferred sketching in notebooks and reading on her porch rather than going to parties. Friends described her as thoughtful, restless, and oddly fascinated by the wilderness that bordered her town. She often walked into the woods at dusk, claiming the air felt different there, sharper somehow, alive with whispers no one else could hear. On the evening, she vanished. The weather was ordinary. Gray clouds, a cooling wind, the first traces of twilight filtering through the branches. She told her parents she was stepping out for a short walk, nothing unusual. She left her phone on her desk, her jacket by the door. Her family assumed she would be back before dark. Instead, she never returned. At first, no one worried. She had wandered before, sometimes taking long trails just to clear her head. But when the sky turned black and her silhouette failed to appear, her parents began to panic. They searched the familiar paths, calling her name, their flashlights cutting through dense branches. There was no sign of her. Not a footprint, not a broken twig, not the faintest echo of movement. When police joined in, they expected to find her quickly. The woods were not endless, just a patch of rural forest, bordered by farms and small roads. Yet something about the search felt wrong from the very beginning. Tracking dogs lost her scent at a curve in the path, as if she had vanished mid-step. Officers spoke in hushed tones, unsettled by how clean the disappearance seemed. By sunrise, the story was already larger than a missing persons case. It was a mystery that would come to haunt the entire town. A girl who walked into the forest and, against all logic, never came back. The first night of searching stretched into a blur of lanterns and flashlights weaving through thick brush. Dozens of volunteers joined her family, their voices echoing her name across the cold night. Yet the deeper they moved, the more unsettling the forest became. It was as if the woods swallowed their calls, dampening the sound until only silence remained. Some said it felt unnatural, like the trees themselves resisted giving her back. At dawn, law enforcement expanded the operation. Tracking dogs were brought in, trained to follow even the faintest human scent. They picked up her trail at the entrance of the path and followed it for several hundred feet. Then, without warning, the dogs stopped. They circled, confused, whining at the ground where her footprints simply ended. No tracks leading away, no broken branches, nothing. It was as though she had stepped off the earth itself. Investigators combed the area for hours, widening the radius. They expected to find at least a clue, a shoe, a piece of clothing, even disturbed soil. Instead, the forest gave them nothing but ordinary debris, fallen leaves, animal prints, and decades-old litter from past hikers. Every lead collapsed into frustration. Rumors began spreading quickly. Some locals whispered she had been lured. maybe by someone hiding in the trees. Others insisted the woods carried old curses, stories of hunters and wanderers who vanished the same way, leaving no trace behind. Police dismissed such talk, but the mood among searchers grew tense. Many admitted the forest felt heavier than usual, as though unseen eyes followed their every step. By the second night, helicopters scanned the treetops with infrared cameras. From above, the forest looked endless, a shadowy maze where heat signatures of deer and foxes flickered faintly. But no trace of her appeared. Even in the cold, even if she had collapsed, something should have shown. The complete absence unsettled the pilots as much as those below. Her family refused to stop. They shouted until their throats grew raw, calling her name again and again, hoping she would answer from some hidden hollow. Yet the only reply was the rustle of wind in the branches. With every passing hour, the forest seemed less like a search site and more like a living thing, holding a secret tight against its chest. For investigators, one fact was undeniable. Disappearances always left evidence. But in this case, the absence of evidence was itself the most chilling clue. As the days passed, the search transformed from urgent rescue to grim investigation. Posters with her face appeared on telephone poles, store windows, and gas stations. A shy smile, brown hair falling across her shoulders, eyes that seemed almost restless, even in photographs. The community clung to hope, but privately, many admitted the case felt different, too clean, too silent. Detectives began piecing together her last known hours. Friends told them she had seemed distracted in the weeks before, staring into the distance during conversations, speaking vaguely about how the woods felt different lately. One friend recalled her saying, "It's like the forest wants me to see something." At the time, it was brushed off as imagination. After she vanished, those words gained a chilling weight. Her diary revealed similar thoughts. Short entries mentioned dreams of walking deeper into the trees, hearing faint music no one else could hear, sensing a pull she couldn't resist. Investigators considered the possibility of mental health struggles, but nothing in her behavior suggested she was planning to harm herself or run away. She had no money taken, no bags packed, no conflicts that might drive her to leave. Some believed abduction was the only answer. Perhaps she was snatched quickly, carried away before she could cry out. Yet the scene didn't fit. No tire tracks, no foreign footprints, no sign of resistance. Detectives admitted privately that it was the most baffling absence of evidence they had ever faced. Locals, meanwhile, returned to their old stories. For generations, whispers told of the Watcher, a figure said to lure wanderers deeper into the forest until they vanished forever. Hunters spoke of strange silences, sudden feelings of dread, and flashes of movement at the corner of their eyes. Most dismissed these tales as folklore, but with each day she remained missing, more people began to wonder if there was truth behind them. Her family clung to the idea she might be alive, maybe lost and surviving off the land. Searchers scoured every abandoned cabin, every riverbank, every hollow that could offer shelter. Yet not a single object of hers was ever found. No scrap of fabric, no hair, nothing. It was this nothingness, the absolute void of clues, that made her disappearance unbearable. Because in the world of missing persons, even the smallest detail tells a story. Here, The silence told a story darker than anyone wanted to believe. By the fourth day, search efforts began to dwindle. Exhausted volunteers returned home, police scaled back their manpower, and reporters swarmed the town, eager to cover what was quickly being framed as an impossible disappearance. Yet those who lived closest to the forest were not surprised. For them, the woods had always carried a reputation that outsiders never took seriously until something like this happened. Older residents recalled their own warnings from childhood. Never wander too deep, never ignore the silence, and never walk alone after dusk. Folklore described the trees as a boundary. More than just nature, they were said to be a doorway. Some believed in old spirits, others in darker forces, but the message was always the same. The forest does not give back what it takes. In town, stories resurfaced of past vanishings. A hunter in the 1970s, last seen heading toward the same trail. A child in the 1950s, who strayed during a picnic and was never found. Each case left behind confusion, broken families, and no answers. Outsiders dismissed these tales as coincidence, yet locals could not ignore the growing pattern. Police, however, remained focused on earthly explanations. They interviewed anyone who might have seen her that evening. A farmer claimed he noticed a flicker of movement along the tree line at dusk, like someone slipping into the shadows. A driver on a nearby road remembered what sounded like a scream, though he admitted it could have been an animal. None of these leads provided solid ground. Meanwhile, the girl's family sat in their living room surrounded by maps, notes, and circles drawn in desperate hope. Her mother replayed every memory of her daughter's habits, convinced she had missed a clue. Her father grew more restless, arguing with officers, begging them to expand the search. And yet, the more they searched, the clearer it became that the forest was not giving up its secret. Some volunteers described unsettling feelings during the search. One said he heard footsteps following him, though no one was there. Another swore he saw a shadow dart between the trees, vanishing when approached. Most kept these accounts private, afraid of ridicule, but the fear in their voices was real. The forest, once just a patch of wilderness, had transformed into something else entirely, a place not only of loss, but of dread. The question was no longer just where she had gone, but what exactly the woods were hiding. As the official search tapered off, the case began to take a darker, stranger turn. With fewer patrols in the woods, rumors multiplied. Some locals who ventured in afterward claimed they saw things that defied explanation. One hiker, walking near the abandoned logging road, reported hearing a girl's voice calling faintly from the trees. The words were indistinct, almost like whispers carried by the wind, but he swore it sounded like her. When he called back, the forest fell silent. Moments later, a sharp crack of branches echoed nearby, but when he turned, no one was there. Another group of teenagers, drawn by morbid curiosity, ventured out one evening with flashlights. They later told police they saw a pale figure standing between two pines, motionless, watching them. At first, they thought it was a person, but when their lights swept over the spot again, the figure was gone, leaving only empty forest. Their story was dismissed as nerves and imagination, but the fear in their retelling convinced many otherwise. The strangest account came from an older hunter. He had lived near the forest his entire life and never feared it until now. He described hearing what sounded like soft humming, like a lullaby deep in the undergrowth. Following it, he found nothing but tangled brush, yet the humming persisted, circling him until he fled the woods altogether. His warning was blunt. There's something out there that doesn't want to be found. Police reluctantly logged these stories, though none led to concrete evidence. But for the girl's family, they fueled an agonizing thought. What if she was still alive, trapped somewhere they couldn't reach? What if the forest itself was holding her hostage? Meanwhile, investigators dug into her phone records, social media, and personal life. No secret boyfriend, no plan to run away, no strange calls in the days leading up to her disappearance. The normality of her digital trail only deepened the mystery. The town was now split. Some believed she had been taken, perhaps by someone who knew the forest well. Others whispered of something more sinister, something beyond explanation. With each passing week, the forest grew quieter, the trail colder, and hope thinner. But the silence only amplified the question that no one could escape. If she wasn't in the forest, then where had she gone? By now, investigators had mapped her last known location down to a single trail junction deep within the forest. Locals called it the Split, where one path curved toward a river and another toward the older, abandoned woods. Dogs traced her scent clearly up to that point, and then it ended, as though she had simply lifted off the ground. Not a thread of fabric, not a footprint beyond the split, not even a broken twig. For search teams, it was like chasing a shadow that dissolved the closer they came. This strange cutoff sparked new theories. Some officers argued she must have doubled back, blending her tracks with the dozens of searchers who followed later. Others believed she might have stumbled upon a hidden cave or shaft swallowed by foliage. But those who knew the area well insisted nothing like that existed nearby. The family refused to give up. They returned daily to the split, leaving flowers, notes, even small lanterns hung on branches, hoping she might find her way back. At night, some claimed to see the faint glow of light flickering deeper in the woods. Those search teams who went after it always came back empty-handed. And this is where I want to hear from you. If you stood at that very spot, the place where her trail simply vanished, what would you think happened? Do you believe she was taken? That she slipped into something hidden? Or do you think the forest itself swallowed her? Comment your location or your theory down below. I read every one, and your perspective might reveal a possibility no one else has considered. Back in town, whispers of the supernatural only grew louder. Residents spoke of time loops, of places where you could walk in circles for hours without realizing it. Some recalled tales of thin places, where the boundary between this world and another wears away. Could the split have been such a place? The official case notes describe, I bet it differently. Point of last contact, no further evidence. Cold words for such a haunting mystery, yet it was undeniable. The trail, the girl, her very existence in that moment, all stopped at the split. And for investigators, it was as if she had walked into thin air. As weeks stretched into months, the case began slipping from headlines, but not from the town's memory. The forest, once just a backdrop of daily life, had become a looming presence. People avoided it after dark. Children were warned to keep away, and every so often someone swore they saw movement just beyond the tree line. A fleeting figure, a pale silhouette that vanished before a second glance. Rumors began to take root. A local historian dug through old archives and unearthed references to disappearances dating back over a century. Miners in the 1800s, a trapper in the early 1900s. All stories ended the same way. Someone entered the woods and never returned. Even stranger, these cases often clustered around the very same area where her trail had gone cold. Whispers grew of the forest being a threshold, a boundary not just of land, but of worlds. Some spoke of spirits that demanded offerings. Others believed it was cursed ground, tainted by something that predated even the town itself. At first, these were just stories, dismissed as folklore. But the eerie parallels with her disappearance forced many to reconsider. Investigators, however, remained divided. One detective, years from retirement, confessed to the family that he couldn't shake the feeling that something unnatural was at play. "I've worked missing persons my whole career," he said, "but I've never seen a trail just stop. People don't disappear like this, unless something else is happening." He left the remark hanging, heavy and unsettling. The girl's family clung to hope, but found themselves drifting between rational explanations and darker suspicions. Her mother would sometimes wake at night, convinced she heard her daughter's footsteps outside. Her father began keeping a journal of dreams in which she appeared, always standing at the edge of the forest, always pointing inward as though urging him to follow. For some, the forest was now alive, not with wildlife, but with echoes of what it had claimed. Voices on the wind, glimpses in the branches, a sense that every step deeper took you closer to something unseen, something waiting. And yet, despite the fear, there was still the lingering possibility that answers might be found, that somewhere in the endless silence of the woods lay the truth about the girl who walked in and never came back. By the 1-year mark, the case had become less about evidence and more about theories. With no fresh leads, no recovered belongings, and no sightings beyond rumors, speculation began to fill the void. Each theory carried its own disturbing implications, and none provided closure. The most grounded idea was abduction. Some investigators argued she may have encountered someone in the forest, a drifter, a hunter, or even someone from town with knowledge of the terrain. A vehicle could have been hidden near an old logging road, far enough from the trail to avoid detection. But there was no sign of a struggle, no tire tracks, no DNA. It was possible, but the silence of the scene made it feel improbable. Another theory was accident. Perhaps she wandered off the path, fell into a ravine, or drowned in the river. Searchers scoured waterways, cliffs, and sinkholes, but nothing surfaced. No clothing, no bones. Nature does not usually erase so completely, especially in such a short time. And then came the darker theories. Some pointed to cult activity, noting strange symbols carved into bark near the split. Authorities dismissed them as old graffiti, but locals whispered otherwise. Others leaned toward the paranormal, convinced the forest was not just a setting, but a participant, something that lured her deeper and concealed her from the world. Her family, meanwhile, lived in torment between possibilities. To accept abduction was to imagine her suffering. To accept accident was to picture her lost and alone. To accept the supernatural was to admit there might never be answers at all. Each path was unbearable, yet unavoidable. Late-night radio shows, online forums, and amateur sleuths seized on the case. Some spun elaborate maps linking her disappearance to ley lines, claiming the forest sat at a point of strange energy. Others compared it to famous vanishings in national podcasts, suggesting a broader hidden pattern. But speculation, however compelling, did little to ease the family's pain. The shadows of doubt stretched longer than the daylight of facts. Every theory, whether logical or otherworldly, ended the same way. She was gone, and no one could prove why. The forest remained both silent witness and prime suspect, its secrets locked behind a wall of trees. And with every passing day, the question grew sharper, cutting deeper into all who remembered her. Had the truth walked away with her into the darkness, never to return? Years passed, and though the official investigation went dormant, the forest never let the town forget. Each anniversary brought vigils to the split, where candles flickered beneath the trees. Friends left photographs, and strangers, people who had never even known her, placed flowers as though drawn by some invisible pull. But alongside these gestures of remembrance came unsettling reports. Hikers claimed they heard footsteps pacing behind them, only to turn and find the trail empty. Some described laughter, faint and childlike, drifting through the branches. A few swore they glimpsed a girl in white darting between trees, always just far enough to keep her face hidden. The strangest accounts came from search and rescue volunteers who returned to the woods for unrelated cases. They described radios crackling with phantom signals, distorted voices repeating her name, even though her case file had long been closed. One veteran rescuer admitted privately that he would never enter that section of the forest again. "It's not just what's missing out there," he said. "It's what's left behind." The family's life was forever altered. They kept her room untouched, a fragile shrine to who she was. Her clothes still hung neatly in the closet, her journals stacked beside her bed. At times, her mother claimed the pages of those journals seemed to shift on their own, as though stirred by a wind that wasn't there. The family never spoke openly of such things, but neighbors noticed. The porch light was left burning every night, a silent beacon waiting for a return that never came. By now, the story had taken on a life of its own. Documentaries, podcasts, and online forums dissected every detail. Some treated it as a true crime puzzle, others as a ghost story passed down in modern form. The line between reality and legend blurred, and perhaps that was inevitable when no resolution been cool. Ms. Stories themselves become the only way to keep the missing alive. The forest stood unchanged through it all, its tall pines whispering in the wind, as if mocking the fragile human attempts to uncover truth. For the people of the town, it had become a mirror of fear. Each branch, each shadow, a reminder of what had been lost within. And yet, even in the absence of answers, one question refused to fade. Was she gone? Or was she still out there, hidden in the silence, waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to follow? Today, the story of the girl who walked into the forest and never came back is less about a single disappearance and more about the silence that followed. Silence from the woods that yielded nothing. Silence from the trails that led nowhere. From the mystery itself, which has refused to unravel despite the years. When people stand at the split where the trail divides, they say the air feels colder, Birds grow quiet. The trees seem to lean in, their branches forming a canopy that feels less like shelter and more like a warning. Some claim the forest remembers those who enter and chooses which ones it lets return. Her disappearance has become more than a tragedy. It is a story that reshaped how people view the world around them. It is proof that sometimes the most chilling mysteries are not those of hidden killers or elaborate conspiracies, but of simple vanishing, of footsteps that begin strong and clear, only to fade until there is nothing left. The unanswered questions linger like shadows. Did someone take her? Did she stumble into danger? Or was the forest itself complicit, swallowing her into a realm where human rules no longer apply? Each theory gnaws at the edges of truth, yet none of them provide release. But perhaps the most haunting part is not just that she vanished, it's that she could vanish again, through someone else. Every forest holds paths unexplored, corners unseen. Every missing person case begins with someone believing it could never happen to me, and then it does. As we leave her story, we are left with a chilling realization. The line between safety and disappearance is thinner than we dare admit. Tonight, when you hear the wind moving through the trees outside your window, ask yourself, are they only trees, or do they carry the echoes of someone still lost, calling out to be remembered? Because some mysteries are not solved, they are only endured, and the forest, ancient and unyielding, keeps its secrets. If this story has unsettled you, intrigued you, or left you with your own theory, I invite you to step deeper into the mysteries we explore here. Like this video, share it with others who seek the unknown, and subscribe to Black Thread Mysteries so you never miss what lies in the shadows. Your thoughts matter, so comment below what you believe happened that day. The forest waits, and so do the answers.